And when I remember my dad, I always remember him giving me good advice. He was a businessman. But one of the things he often said was, Marilyn, no money, no funny. So we always start this show with advice about finance and how we can secure our future for retirement. And the person who does that is Darren Farwell, and sometimes, like last week, Leslie McCormick of the Farwell Group. So good morning, Darren.
Good morning, Marilyn. You had mentioned it's only 2 sleeps until fall.
Yes.
So if I can just stay awake for a couple of days, we can stave that off maybe a bit longer.
That's a really good idea, Darren. I don't know if I'm able to stay up 24/7 for 2 days, but just enjoy the days.
Thank you. We're supposed to have a nice weekend this weekend. Well, as you know, those who've listened from a woman's perspective for some time will know I'm a bit of a sports guy. And, for athletes, there's that saying, never take your eyes off the ball. And I can assure you from watching many matches and that's a good saying. But, for us everyday fans in our everyday lives, sometimes the time comes that, as particularly, for investing and planning, that you kind of do want to take your eyes off the ball. And I'm suggesting what I want to talk about today is when it comes time to take your eyes off the ball, don't drop it still. And I'm going to talk about this in regard to losing a spouse, because the loss of the spouse can certainly be one of the most significant events in your lifetime. Me and my team, the Farwell Group, are here to help you navigate your way forward when you are ready, with a process designed with your unique needs in mind as a widow. And for different people, that desire for some guidance comes at quite different times. Sometimes it's help right away to assist in getting things in order and making sure nothing gets missed. For others, like Ruth, it's later, well after her spouse passed away. See, Ruth had a second transition after her husband suddenly passed away at the age of 68. See, Ruth had always been in charge of the household budgeting as well as investing. And long-term planning, they tend to do more together, as Ruth said. But when it came down to the day-to-day investing and the budgeting, it was always Ruth. That was just the division of labor between her and her husband. That's the stuff she did. He did other stuff, but that's the stuff she did. So when Ruth began to be solely responsible for the investment and planning decisions after her husband passed away, as, by the way, 90% of women baby boomers will, at some point in their lives, be solely responsible. And not just for a short period of time, as the average baby boomer wife will outlive her male spouse by 10 to 15 years. So that's 10 to 15 years of being solely responsible for these kind of decisions. But you see, for Ruth, she already had her process. She was already doing all of that. There were lots of things she needed help with as she went through the grieving process, but money and investing wasn't one of them. Then over time, the second transition happened, not quite as dramatically and unfortunately as the first one, but as her grandchildren grew up, they began to add an awful lot of joy to her life and take up a lot more of her time along the way. Her volunteering ended up being, to her surprise, even more satisfying and more rewarding than she thought. So she took more time at it. And then there was bridge club, and there was swimming, and there were art classes, and there was a whole bunch of things, none of which had anything to do with investing or money. And what Ruth began to experience was that with all of that going on, she didn't have the spare energy or really even the desire to spend time on the investing side. Other aspects of her life just became more interesting, more important to her. And she began, in her words, to lose the pulse of what was happening in the markets. That caused her confidence to fade. But it's not because she couldn't. It just wasn't that much fun anymore, and the money side wasn't that important. So long, of course, as it supported her lifestyle and she could still leave a meaning legacy to her children. So Ruth decided it was time to find some help. She wanted someone to do the work, to be the pulse for her. Ruth realized that by not paying full attention herself, by not keeping the eye on the ball herself, that she could actually jeopardize her lifestyle and the legacy to her kids. Now, as it turns out, Ruth's friend referred her to me and my team as we do have a unique process to help women like Ruth who are looking for guidance for investing and planning. But many of our, from a woman's perspective, listeners, don't have a good referral. And perhaps, as happens often, the referral you speak to just isn't a good fit for you. So my colleague, Leslie McCormick, as you mentioned earlier, has recently published a book called Bank on Yourself. In her book, there's a specific process we outline for finding the right advisor to help, to find the person to keep the eye on the ball for you. And for the women perspective listeners, they're certainly welcome to give us a call, send an email, and we'll send a copy of that process so that you can, when the time comes, when you're ready to take your eye off the ball and pass it on to someone else, that you have a process in mind to find the right person to be on your team and help out.
Well, I meet a lot of people, and a lot of women in particular, who retire and then find themselves very engaged in life, and they're surprised that they're busier in retirement than they are in their work life, or were in their work life. So knowing that they can take their eye off the ball and ask an expert, I think would be something that's good advice. So thanks for sharing Ruth's story. Now, if anyone's sitting there and they want to understand what you and the Farwell Group do and walk through what the possibilities are for their investments, how do we reach you?
I will be going to the office this morning after our show, as usual. And so you could call me at 416-863-7501. You can like us on our Facebook page, the Farwell Group.
So 416-863-7501. You can speak to Darren. You can ask for this chapter of the book, actually, about how to get the right financial fit for a financial planner. And I have Leslie's book at my store, so I'll just mention that. So if you feel like getting the book and having all the chapters, I do have a library at my store in Maryland's. So thanks for sharing Ruth's story, Darren. I think it highlights what a lot of people go through, and I look forward to speaking to you again next week.
Always nice to be here, Marilyn.
It's a pleasure to have you.